Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Gentex Multimedia presentation for Saturday, September the 19th. The push to bring more Australians stranded overseas has begun as states agree to gradually increase their caps on international arrivals. South Australians have been warned to take extra precaution as the state prepares to reopen its borders with New South Wales. Confirmed cases of coronavirus has now topped 30 million worldwide. So follow Gentex Multimedia for updates and live streams from Australia and around the world. Major anti-lockdown protests are planned for Melbourne in this weekend. International travel caps to increase in New South Wales, Queensland and Western Australia. South Australia prepares to reopen border to New South Wales. And global coronavirus cases, as I mentioned, has now gone to 30 million. So in Queensland, we have 1,150 cases with 1,112 recovery and 6 deaths. Whole of Australia, 26,861 cases, 23,850 recovery and 837 deaths. Worldwide, as I mentioned before, 30.3 million. Recovery at 20 million, and so that should equate to deaths, which is about 948k. So that's a large number. That's a huge number. Well, right now, let's take a very quick look at the weather for rest of Saturday. Well, there is a possibility of a shower, but not great. And partly cloudy, medium 40% chance of a shower, and winds easterly 15 to 25 kilometers, beginning light and then becoming lighter in the evening. Fire danger still remains high, of course, around this time of the year. Fire danger is very high. Sun protection is recommended from now till about 2:50, and the index will be 8, which is very high on the scale. So if you're going out there, sun protection is definitely recommended. Well, what's tomorrow going to be looking like? Well, it's the minimum of 16 with a maximum of 27, a shower or 2 for tomorrow. Possible rain about 2 millimeters, partly cloudy, medium 50% chance of a shower, most likely in the morning and in the early afternoon. Light winds becoming northeasterly of course, fire danger is high, and the UV will be down 1 notch to 7 tomorrow. And when we come back on Monday, the minimum will be 17 and the maximum 27, with a possible chance of rain at about 0.4 millimeters. Chance of rain is about 30%. Partly cloudy, slight 30% chance of a shower in the morning and afternoon. Light winds becoming north to northeasterly, 20 to 30 kilometers during the day. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, up to date on Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times daily Facebook live update. Hey, it is wonderful to see you. How's your dog going so far? What plans do you have for the weekend? You can put those in the comments, and we'll probably discuss that. Well, right now, let's take a look at the headlines or the main stories for today.
You can keep up to date at any time with news.abc.net.au. Also on iView, right here on the news channel. Here are the top stories this hour. The federal opposition is demanding the government consider charter flights to get stranded Australians home, arguing an increase in the cap on international arrivals does not go far enough. National Cabinet today agreed to lift the weekly number of international arrivals by almost 2,000 in the next 5 weeks. Shadow Foreign Minister Penny Wong argues that's welcome, but it will take too long to filter through. Health officials are racing to stop a growing cluster of COVID-19 cases in Melbourne's southeast, which they're calling a super spreading event. There are 34 infections linked to Hallam and Casey areas. 45 new cases and 5 more deaths were recorded in Victoria overnight, taking the state's coronavirus death toll to 750. New South Wales Deputy Premier and Nationals leader John Barilaro is taking leave to deal with mental health issues. Mr Barilaro is understood to be on leave for the next 4 weeks. It comes after he threatened to take his Nationals team to the cross bench following a dispute over a koala protection policy. And a former stock trader who drunkenly robbed Sydney banks more than 4 decades ago has been sentenced to 3.5 years in jail. Ross McCarthy, now 71, admitted to police he had a double life in which he would hold up banks during his lunch break in the late 70s. He will be eligible for parole in March 2022.
And that's the news in brief. Right now, let's go and take a look at some of the other breaking news that's happening around here. First of all, let's go to the Queensland Parliament and let's hear what our Premier has to say.
Today I can say the National Cabinet went extremely well, and from Monday week, Queensland will increase our intake of international arrivals by 200, and the following week an extra 500, taking our total to 1,000. Let me say this is heartbreaking to hear the stories of people trapped overseas, Queenslanders trapped overseas, and we know that the virus is spreading in some of these countries, especially Europe, where we're seeing large numbers of COVID cases, and I understand the desperation of mums and dads wanting their kids to come home, or uncles and aunts or parents, and I want to do everything we possibly can. The Prime Minister has agreed to extra Australian Defence Force personnel to help, and I thank him for that. This is the way we should be working in cooperation. So we want to do everything we can, and we will continue to assist as much as possible. The other issue I've been raising for quite some time is the manifests on domestic flights. Since early February, we have been painstakingly trying to get information from airlines to help with our contact tracing. Finally, we had some breakthrough today, and there has been an agreement that if we do need contact tracing, the details will be given to the states to assist with that. As I said, we've been asking since February. Let me make it very clear. I listened to the advice of the Chief Health Officer, and that is exactly what we will continue to do.
And the Chief Health Officer, as we know, is under police protection as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, for everyone else joining into the show, wonderful. How's your day going on whichever part of the world you are in? It's good to see that you're all joining in there. Well, right now, as we know, Stephen Lee, has resigned, and what his reasons were for this resignation. Let's hear directly from him.
Just wanted to share that today I announced
member
that
for
I
Groom
have submitted my resignation as a federal member for Groom to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. In accordance with House practice, this is automatically deemed to take effect immediately. This has been an exceedingly difficult decision for my family and and it is not one that has been taken lightly. I certainly regret what will be a short-term disruption here in the electorate of Groom, but I remain absolutely confident that the coalition government, of which I have been tremendously honoured to be a part, will continue to lead our nation well through current challenges and certainly on to greater future opportunities for all Australians. Close friends and family are aware that my wife Anita successfully overcame significant illness and surgery during 2018. However, a further relapse earlier this year requiring hospitalisation in Sydney was a tremendous shock to our family, and this has been cause for significant reflection for all of us over recent months. I want to make it very, very clear that we are truly blessed as a family that her health is on the improve again. And it is now my family's absolute priority, therefore, to keep it that way. Hence the need for me to step down from the demands and absences of being a federal Member of Parliament. I am tremendously honoured to have been elected to serve and represent our community here in Toowoomba and the Darling Downs at the local, state and federal levels of government during the last 12 years.
So, his reasons there, the family reasons, and of course, everyone believes that family always comes first. Well, right now we're going to talk about the function that's going to happen tonight, the online event that we are supporting. and it is for supporting all the frontliners, and it is showing gratitude to everybody. So it will be live on Facebook today. It's been presented by Let's Bollywood, Sargam Music Academy, and of course Australian Indian Theatre, and supported by our media partners, Australian Indian Radio, Brisbane Indian Times. Videographer and photographer is Peter Cabral, photography DJ Amit, and supporters are Cornerstone Law Officers and all other sponsors who are helping in, chipping in into that. So let's hear from Mithun, one of the organizers from Sargam Music Academy. This is a pre-recorded segment which we did few days back. तो जी बताऊं, आज हमारे साथ हमारे स्टूडियो में हमारे खास मेहमान हैं.
Interview is in Hindi, but he'll pick up some of the English.
आपको बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आज हमारे स्टूडियोज में.
Thank you very much, Umesh ji, for having me here.
It's wonderful to have you here. और अच्छा, आप बताइए कि आज आप यहाँ पर कुछ विशेष कारण से आए हुए हैं, क्योंकि ये जो होने जा रहा है इवनिंग ऑफ ग्रेटिट्यूड, इसके बारे में कुछ बताइए. क्या होने जा रहा है, क्या कुछ होने?
Sure. Okay. Well, basically, I'm representing 3 groups tonight. ये जो show हो रहा है on 19th of September will start at 6 p.m. on Facebook Live. Initially, our concept was to do on live on stage, पर वो हम लोग कर नहीं पाएंगे during this lockdown restriction. पर हमने सोचा show करना है, और इसीलिए हमने on Facebook Live में जाने का decision लिया. This show is to show our gratitude to all the frontline workers who are entirely working day and night during this COVID time. And हमारा 3 group है इसमें. Ourselves, Sargam Music Academy, Australian Indian Theatre and Let's Bollywood. हम तीनों ग्रुप मिलके एक कल्चरल इवेंट का आयोजन किया है on 19th of September. I hope you all be there. Please log into Facebook Live show.
तो मैं तो ये जो Facebook लाइव पर होगा, तो एक तो इस पर लोगों को पहले से रजिस्टर करना पड़ेगा कि ये पब्लिक इवेंट होगा?
It's a public event. It's a free public event, Umesh ji. And हमारे अगर इवेंट पेज पे आप interested या going देंगे तो आपको pop-up भी होगा.
So yes, as we were talking about, that event will take place tonight, and you can go and register now, so that you get the notification when they do go on live. It will be a wonderful show, and here's a glimpse of what you might be glad to see. So just a quick glimpse, that is from the practices, but obviously tonight will be the full-on show, and of course dance, theatre, and it is supporting a very, very good cause, and you don't have to spend any money. You're sitting down in the luxury of your lounge, sit down, relax, and enjoy the show. But make sure that you're there and put on your comments in the comment section. Well, right now, as we have talked about international travellers being allowed back in, so let's hear from our Prime Minister first up.
Working together with states and territories, you work together, and there's some disagreements about that, and there are issues raised in terms of the step up, and so we've been able to resolve those today. So we'll get there. We'll get there about a couple of weeks after I would like to have got there, but we're still going to get there. That's the point.
What caused that delay?
Well, the issues that were raised were about the ability of the Western Australian government and less so the Queensland government, because they're moving a week before Queensland to get their quarantine up to that capability that quickly. And so they've asked for that additional time. They'll move to 200 additional extra by Monday week, so it's not like there won't be an increase in the cap. There will be. They agreed to that, and that would happen within that next week timetable. And then it'll scale up to 500 first in Queensland, and then 500 in WA, and New South Wales will move to that first, and they'll do that within the next week.
And so that's the plan. Been working in with all the states to make sure that the implementation takes place. And of course, as anything, delays do happen. Well, next up we're going to Melbourne. Residents visiting other households have driven up southeast Melbourne cluster. So John Weimar, a former departmental secretary now responsible for the state's testing strategy, said the cluster had spread across 5 households in the Casey and Dandenong council areas. Let's hear from him.
What we're also now seeing in Casey and Dandenong is a cluster of 34 cases across 5 households. And I wanted to really talk through the inherent risks we see in household transmission. One of the reasons why the current restrictions ask us not to have households communicating with each other or contacting each other or sharing each other over this current phase of our restrictions is because of the inherent risks around that kind of contact and around close contact between different households. And this is what's been playing out within Casey. There are 5 households across Hallam, Clyde, Narre South and Cranbourne North. And across those 5 households we currently have 34 positive cases. The first of those cases was identified on the 4th of September, and we have had to undertake a significant and painstaking contact tracing exercise to actually get to the bottom of which other households were involved and how those households are connected. Go to the next slide, please. What we've seen is obviously some normal travel that we would expect people to conduct in order to get the necessary things for life. So the 4 reasons why people can leave home, and certainly we see some travel to shopping centres and stores largely within the 5-kilometre radius. But we've also seen in this particular cluster visiting of houses beyond the 5k radius. So these 5 houses in this particular cluster have had, unfortunately, some members of those households visiting other households. And it is that limited amount of contact, relatively infrequent contact between these 5 households that has now meant that we have 34 people in 5 houses experiencing and living with a very real threat of the coronavirus. And this is fundamentally what this highlights for us, is that this is not about where you're from, it is not about how old you are, it is not about what you do for a living, it is not about what gender you are. It is fundamentally, it highlights the fact that this virus knows no boundaries, this virus respects no differences between people. It ultimately thrives on close human contact and even indirect human contact.
And that message is very, very clear there that, we do need to take that responsibility. And as we now, as soon as we lift our guards, the clusters begin to happen. And as in this case, was through one family chain there as well. Well, next up, we go to, Canberrians will be allowed in Queensland. So as our borders reopen in time for school holidays, so let's hear from the Deputy Premier, Stephen Marks.
Really pleased to report that after a lot of work from our Chief Health Officer, as well as detailed conversations between the Premier and the Chief Minister of the Australian Capital Territory and between our government and the Canberra Airport, we are announcing today that we will lift border restrictions on the ACT from 1 a.m. next Friday. That means that people from the ACT will again be able to visit Queensland. We've been saying for some time now that for Queenslanders, Queensland is good to go. Well, now for Canberrans, Queensland is good to come. And so now is the time we would urge them to start thinking about coming up to Queensland for a holiday. This is timed to coincide with the school holidays in the ACT. It's a great chance for people to come and visit friends and relatives or go to the reef, go to Cairns, go to one of our wonderful tourism hotspots. This is great news for the ACT and of course is recognition of the fact that they have been some time now without any active cases.
And as he said, there could be some complications as well. People trying to prove they are Canberrians and not from anywhere else. Well, right now, there has been so much focus on international students. We talked about international students and how important they are to the economy here. If you look at all the infrastructure that's been put in place in all the major cities, I'm not talking just about the colleges. If you look at all the student accommodation and all other infrastructure that's been put in place, and now that the students are not coming, earlier in the week we looked at all the problems that could be facing and how there are many empty nests in those student accommodations, the high rises that have been built in the city. But of course we know that many of the students are also facing hardship. There are many of ones who are employed or who qualified for JobKeeper and that they would be retained by their employers. But there are others who probably don't have work and they have no other means of supporting themselves and they are caught up in that situation. Even though we know that as per the rules, it says that you must have enough money to sustain yourself while you're studying here in Australia. But everyone knows that, it is not always hard, that they do rely on that part-time work to meet all the other incidentals and all the other expenses. So here's a report from ABC on international students and featuring Abi and Swapna. As they say, they are finding it hard to make ends meet.
Swapna Karanam and Abi Chavella are master's students at La Trobe University in Melbourne, and they join us now. Lovely to speak to you both this morning. I think it's really important that people actually understand the financial pressures that you're under at this particular time. Abi, can you just talk us through the loans that you took out to get here and how you're managing to survive with your work reduced as it has been?
Before the pandemic, everything was quite well. Everything was like planned and we were quite happy, but with this unexpected COVID and this difficult situations, like everything has changed. Like I came here on bank loans, like banks in India, they sponsored me here by loans, but the repayment, like I have to pay them EMIs, like every month installments. Unfortunately, because of this COVID, I'm unable to pay these EMIs there.
So your bank loans are quite hefty, I understand. About $40,000 you took out at 13% interest, and
yes.
you can't pay them at the moment. Just tell us about your work situation and how much money you're actually earning to survive, and how you're getting by.
On an average, I'm just earning $350 to $400 a week. If I get complete hours, like legal hours, 20 hours a week, I'm earning my $350 to $400. Sometimes 500 is the most that I have earned in a week. And this $400 is not at all enough for me. Like my rent, bills and maintenance itself is almost $800 to $900 a month, excluding my petrol bills.
Yeah, and in all of this, you're meant to be studying as well. Swapna, so you actually lost work at the start of the pandemic. How are you managing to pay your bills? How are you managing to eat?
Coming to my work, before 6 months ago, I had lost my job as a waitress. So in between those time, during 6 months, my organization, several NGOs helped me in this time, giving foods and food vouchers to pay my groceries. So they helped me in this way. And coming to the rent, in the 6 months, I have managed that 2 months of my savings and 1 month. And after 1 month, I have started applying for grants. So last month I got a call from Consumer Affairs Australia. So they have made an agreement with my owner. So it's under still processing. So we are still hoping to get any help from government.
Yeah, and so you're basically relying on people giving you food to actually manage to eat. And Swapna, I know that you've had some experience that so many international students have when you've actually applied for jobs. You've gone and worked hours and you haven't been paid, and they're effectively exploiting international students. Tell us what happened to you.
Yes, from my experience, many restaurants, I mean, I can't name them right now. So many Indian restaurants, they call us for a job, and I went there. After that, I mean, I have worked more than 6 hours, 3 times per day. So I have worked 3 times in one single restaurant, but they haven't given me any salary.
So the situation there, is grim, as we know. The students. So there's many things to look at here. Is one is we know, and the government understand that the students do bring in a lot of money in terms of fees. But when you look at the students here in Australia, the situation is that the students come in, they study, they come in to study, but they also are very reliant on work. So they are not 100% or full-time student like other students, but it's not that they will only be studying. As is the case in many other cases, like in our case as well. When we studied, I studied in India. We went from overseas, we studied in India. And of course, in our thing was just to go there, study. We didn't have to look for work. So that was a different scenario. That the scenario today is that, all the students coming here are dependent upon that work. So, they are looking at the work, and many times, as has been reported, that many times people do get exploited as well. Especially working in some restaurants and other things, and sometimes they do go in for trial periods as well. So once again, the trial period is questionable. What is the trial period? The suitability of the job as well, and we know that many times they may be overqualified for the job that they're going in for, and so the expectation of the wages or what they are supposed to get as pay the qualification is not what they would probably be getting. And of course, when a qualification is a qualification, but do you have the necessary skill set to fulfill that job to the Australian standard? That's another matter there as well. So there's quite a lot of things. But for the students, I know that here in Brisbane, and of course in Canberra, Sydney, Melbourne, everywhere, a lot of Indian associations are supporting them. Are supporting all the Indian students. I'm talking about the Indian students, that there are many organizations who have risen to the occasion, who are supporting them with food, and if someone has a shortfall of money or things like that, there are organizations where they can actually call upon. As we know, the Sikh temple here has been providing food to all the ones, and saying that if any of the international students here do not have food, they register on there and the food is delivered to their door as well. And we covered that story right here on this channel, and we looked at the whole operation, how that operation was handled. There is Sahyog Australia, which is helping all the students as well. So I think they need to reach out to the community organizations which are supporting them in this time. And there are many other organizations we know as within our Sikh community, always the first to rise to the occasion whenever anything like this happens, to come forward and help the students. In unfortunate cases as well, and that community has always been forthcoming and assisting even times of need when there is some hospitalization or anything like that. Funds need to be raised. The community is there and is supporting them. So I feel that Avi and Swapna need to reach out to the community for this assistance as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, so you're listening to Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times daily Facebook Live update. Right now it's time for a very quick commercial break.
ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी 1989 से लेकर अब तक का विश्वसनीय और माननीय ब्रिस्बेन का रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। उषा चंद्रा, जो कि ग्लोबनेट की डायरेक्टर है, अपने ग्राहकों को ईमानदार और एथिक सर्विसेज देती हैं। अगर आप ब्रिस्बेन की प्रॉपर्टी में पूंजी लगाना चाहते हैं और आप चाहते हैं कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी को प्रोफेशनली मैनेज किया जाए, तो आप आज ही कांटेक्ट कीजिए उषा चंद्रा को। लैंडलाइन नंबर है 38654466 और मोबाइल नंबर है 0419775416। और आप प्रॉपर्टी की अधिक जानकारी और करंट अपडेट्स के लिए हमारी वेबसाइट पे लॉगिन कर सकते हैं। हमारी वेबसाइट है www.globnetreality.com.au। ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी आपका अपना लोकल रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। हमारा पता है ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी, शॉप नंबर 5, 2281 Sandgate Road, Bundall, Queensland. Globenet Reality. Real estate is our world.
and real estate is the world. And of course, we know that there is a special promotion that's going on at this point in time with GlobeNet Realty. So if you are in the market to sell your home, if you list with GlobeNet Realty within the specified period, you go in a draw to win $5,000. Well, right now, let's go to overseas. And first up, we go to Afghanistan. And as we know, there has always been that query of the names, how the names, especially of the females, have been used or what they have been allowed to use those names for and where they are. Let's take a look at that report.
These Afghan women are fighting for something that we take for granted.
Before being a daughter, wife, or mother, I am myself.
The right to be referred to by their own names. And they've just won a massive victory. Mothers now have the right to put their own names on their children's birth certificates.
I really cried. It makes me cry whenever I think of the moment I heard the news, because in a society where everything is against women and they work to keep women down, this is a big step forward.
In Afghan tradition, women are often regarded as property, and using their name outside of the home is thought to bring shame on the family. Their own names are missing on wedding invitations, legal documents, and even their own gravestones.
It's one small piece of a much larger puzzle of ways in which women's rights are still systemically violated, including by a discriminatory legal system. But it's really significant because as long as women's names don't appear on identification cards, don't appear in public records, their identities really don't exist, and a lot of their legal rights don't exist.
In Herat, Governor Wahid Khatali held a press conference with the local women who launched the campaign. He asked journalists to add his mother's name, Zahida, when quoting him.
We stand beside these women and we promise to stand beside our mothers. Their names will no longer be hidden.
But not all Afghan leaders are happy.
This is going to face a lot of pushback, certainly from the Taliban, but also just from conservative and traditional people in women's families.
And as peace talks continue with the Taliban, Afghan women fear the limited number of rights they have fought so hard for and actually gained could be negotiated away. Tracy Shelton, ABC News.
And a very strong advocate of the Afghan community here in Brisbane is Rita Adwari. We'll probably bring her onto this show and discuss that matter further one of these days. But right now, as we're doing the international round, let's go to US.
He doesn't want to see anything happen. It's all about his re-election. It should be about the American people, and they're in trouble. And if we don't do it, and by the way, his own CDC director contradicted him recently. He said, if in fact you just wore this mask, nothing else but this mask, you would save between now and January another 100,000 lives. And so we have to be honest with the American people. They're tough. They know, as Franklin Roosevelt said, things get worse and worse before they get better and better, but you got to level with the American people, shoot from the shoulder. There's never been a time they've not been able to step up. This president should step down. All the way back, and I was on one of your shows, all the way back in March, I was calling for the need for us to have masks, have the president stand and tell us what's going on. But he knew it. He knew it and did nothing. It's close to criminal.
He knew it and did not do anything, is what he's saying. Well, right now it's time to take a look at some of the functions and events that's taking place. Well, first off, we'll look at... let me get the title out of there first. Yes, Vishnu Maya Mandir and Sampurna Purushottam Mas Bhagavad Mahapuran Katha. And now from Sunday 27 September till Sunday 4th October, and the timings are there, and this is the new flyer because now with all the dates and timings. So Saturday and Sunday 5 p.m. till 7:30 p.m. and Monday to Friday from 6:30 p.m. till 8:30 p.m. So program for the last day, which will be on Sunday or 4th of October. So for further inquiry, contact Devika or any of the listed numbers there. So it is when we go to all the events, you'll probably see the flyer which was there previously, but this one has just come in. So it is the latest flyer which will update, and of course all the information will be available on our website as well. So ladies and gentlemen, here's all the evening of gratitude which we will talk about. That's happening tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, let me talk about an evening of gratitude. This is the one that is happening tonight, and it is a Facebook Live event. Please, log on to that event and take part and support that wonderful cause that is taking place. So it's 3 groups coming together: Sargam Music Academy, Australian Indian Theatre, and Let's Bollywood. So music, theatre and dance all in one from the comfort of your lounge. Sit down wherever you are, sit down, sit down, relax with a cup of tea or whatever you would like to drink and enjoy the show and supporting. Remember, it is in gratitude of all the frontliners who have been working through this COVID-19. So it's a wonderful initiative that's been put forward by the 3 groups here. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, it's now time to say goodbye. But before we do that, let's take a look at the weekly roundup of the coronavirus and see where it is at this point in time. As we know that every week, Jeremy Fernandez, brings to us the update on the coronavirus.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Fernandez. Coming up on the virus, Victoria takes a significant step out of lockdown as restrictions are eased across regional Victoria. Plus, the Oxford University and AstraZeneca vaccine trial resumes as concerns grow across Europe that another wave of the pandemic could be about to hit. But first, there's been some good news for Australians stuck overseas. State and territory leaders have agreed to raise the cap on international arrivals. They made the announcement following National Cabinet after the Prime Minister insisted in allowing 2,000 more Australians to return home each week, starting from next Friday. However, it'll be at a slower pace than Scott Morrison would have liked because Queensland and Western Australia want more time to boost their hotel quarantine capacity. This means that the cap will be gradually increased over the coming weeks.
It will be done in a stage way. New South Wales will move to take an additional 500 by Monday week, so that's the 27th of September. Queensland and Western Australia on that same day will be taking an additional 200 per week from the 27th of September. And by the 4th of October, Queensland will then move to that full 500 extra, so they'll increase it by 300 again. And by the 11th of October, WA will also go to that 500 extra a week.
In Victoria, case numbers are falling faster than expected. There are now predictions that Melbourne could see restrictions eased again by the end of this month. There were 45 new cases and 5 more deaths overnight, taking the state's coronavirus death toll to 750. It's the 8th consecutive day Victoria has recorded fewer than 50 new cases, but it is an increase on yesterday's tally of 28. Today, the 14-day case average is down to 42.7. That's down from yesterday's 44.4. That's well below the predicted 14-day case average of 63. And these are encouraging figures. The next step on Melbourne's roadmap to easing restrictions will happen after September the 28th. That's Monday week, if the 14-day average stays between 30 and 50. Regional Victoria is already enjoying relaxed restrictions, which has given those outside Melbourne a huge boost in morale. People have been able to venture out to pubs, cafes and restaurants for long-awaited catch-ups with their friends and loved ones.
It's been a long, cold winter away from good mates.
It's bloody fantastic, you know, after being in lockdown for so long.
Coffee's up without takeaway cups.
Strong double shot latte. That's what I needed.
The mandatory masks prevent facials, but some beauty services are back on.
Oh, it's absolutely marvellous.
For many regional businesses, it's a day to savour after surviving not just one, but 2 shutdowns.
Today it's been amazing just to have that, you know, interaction with people and then just talk to people and then discuss things and how's life with them, and you haven't seen them for a while.
In the state's north, the New South Wales border restrictions were suddenly lifted last night, a pleasant surprise for many.
We're actually planning our honeymoon now that we can actually leave the state.
Yeah, we eloped on Saturday, so we didn't think we'd be able to go away, but now we can.
The 50-kilometre border bubble remains in place, but for those within that zone, tourism and recreation on the Murray River can resume.
Got some new equipment. They've recently purchased a racing hull for people of my weight, and I haven't had a chance to row that in competition yet, and I'm really looking forward to that. It'd be great.
When school holidays start this weekend, caravan parks in all corners of the state will be flooded with holidaymakers.
Ever since we found out that Regional Victoria was able to travel, the phone has not stopped. It's been a busy couple of days. It's a huge relief. Really, really exciting.
And that's all for the weekend edition. In today's episode, it's been wonderful having your company. And do keep those letters coming back. And Dora Vasudeva Rao, good morning to you as well. And everyone who has joined in and all those comments that have been coming in. Thank you so much. We've been trying to reply to all the comments. Thank you so much for joining in. And if you have any topic that you'd like to discuss, we'd gladly like to include you on the show. So until Monday, it's goodbye from me. Be good, but most important, you and your family stay safe. See you then.